Hey guys, welcome to Project Metal Music's YouTube channel with your host El Young, and we are here with Josh from the band Obsidian Resurrection. So welcome, Josh.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, my pleasure. So, Josh, could you introduce yourself and what you do within Obsidian Resurrection?
I'm the bassist, but we're kind of a group collective. We write the songs together. So as long as everyone's happy, we're all happy. We can't just leave one person hanging. So it's kind of a group effort. But I write bass, and we all pitch in and help with the composition of the music itself.
Cool, cool. Yeah, so let's dive into some questions. As a kid, what were you listening to?
Oh wow, as a kid, man, what wasn't I listening to? I blame my parents and my sisters and my grandparents for the eclectic musical background. I was listening to anything from hippie rock from my mom, hard rock and basic metal from my dad. One of my sisters got me into death metal and punk. My sister got me into glam rock and traditional heavy metal. So I kind of just took all that, and then my grandparents got me into classical music and jazz. But my main bands, if I can get back into my memory banks for a bit, I was blasting a lot of Metallica, Slayer, Skid Row. I loved Whitesnake. Guilty pleasure, I was always jamming to the Beach Boys. But I also had a lot of Megadeth was going around back then. Just a little bit of everything. But I also love the Rat Pack. So I'm kind of musically eclectic like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's kind of
Cool.
because a lot of people in my family are musicians. Like my dad was a bassist in a rock and roll band. My mom played piano. My grandma played piano and organ and sang. So, there's a lot of musicians in the family, and I kind of latched on to my dad. He played bass. So it's kind of just runs in the family.
Cool, cool. Was there any other influences for you who sort of like say for instance, I know your family were like a big influence on you getting into music. Was there anybody else saying, "Oh, Josh, listen to this band," "Oh, Josh, listen to that band," or was it sort of like more of a journey of self discovery?
It's kind of equal parts. People tell me to check this band out, check that band out, but then there's also my own curiosity. The main bands, like I would say, my dad was really big into Skid Row and Tesla. So they really, even at a young age, those two bands and Kiss, they taught me to tune in to the musical parts and focus on the groove and the hook, something that keeps you listening. Even as a young child, I understood that because I'll never forget one of the conversations my dad had. I was playing I can't remember what video game it was. It might have been Mario Brothers 3 on the Nintendo. And he comes in and he's teaching me, I guess you'd say, musical composition 101. At a young age, he's trying to tell me, listen to this level's music. He told me to notice how it repeats. And he said, this is the hook right here. And it keeps you listening. And then he kind of taught it with me with video game music at first, which was interesting. Later on, he kind of helped me with that with live music in his studio. But so my dad got me into, like I said, Kiss, Tesla, Skid Row. My own personal band that I discovered at an early age out of curiosity that I'm still a huge fan of to this day is Suicidal Tendencies. Their bass playing just is phenomenal. He's one of my favorite bass players. Justin Chancellor from Tool is another one of my influences. In fact, the bass I have is the bass he uses while he's recording studio albums for Tool. I have that model bass. So he's one of my main influences. And of course, my dad got me into Cliff Burton. That's how I got into Metallica. So yeah, it's kind of equal parts. People tell me to check this band out, check this artist out, and then me just exploring. Because at a young age, I worked on my family's ranches, I had my paper out, mowed people's lawns, and with my money, I'd go to the record stores and my mom and dad would just let me go, So I just go explore the different bands, all the different tapes, and yeah, that's how my record collection grew. A lot of Iron Maiden was in there at the time, Judas Priest. Bon Jovi was big too, and the Scorpions.
Cool, yeah. I was going to ask about who actually inspired you, who actually inspired. Can't speak. It's been a long day. I was going to ask about which musician who actually inspired you. So, was there any other musicians that inspired you?
I'll save the corny bit for last, but musician wise, Gene Simmons, Cliff Burton, Justin Chancellor. Those are my main influences musically as a bass player. And the corny bit is my dad. Like as a little kid, my dad built his recording studio with his own hands from the ground up, and just I will never forget going into the studio and just hanging out with him, watching him record all these other bands, and then watching him jam with his own band, and just watching my dad play his bass. You know, he would like let me sit on his lap, and he would teach me how to play, and he would teach me how to listen by ear, and stuff like that, and how to figure things out musically. And so my dad was my ultimate inspiration as to why I played. And ironically, the instrument he had me learn wasn't even bass. He wanted me to learn how to play the acoustic guitar first, because that helps you teach proper finger placement and the finger pressures on the strings, so it'll sound more crisp. And that I absolutely couldn't stand it, but I learned it. But it translated really well to when I did finally pick up the bass, because going from acoustic guitar to bass with these big old bear paws of mine, it was such an easy transition, and learning the proper finger placement really helped. So I credit my dad to that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so were you in any other bands prior to Obsidian Resurrection?
Lots of bands. My first band was in junior high called The Prophecy. Kind of played like speed punk, and then that evolved into just basic metal. That broke up, and then I cannot remember for the life of me what the next band after that was, but that was in high school. And then that dissolved, and then right out of high school is when Obsidian formed. We were originally called Obsidian back in 99, 2000-ish, somewhere around there is when we formed. And that band had its run for several years. And see, when that band broke up, we had an entire album's worth of material just sitting around, and we didn't really know what to do with it. So just kind of started collecting dust over the years, which years turned into decades. But after Obsidian broke up, I'll get back to that in a second. After Obsidian broke up, I was in a lot of other bands because, well, a lot of this kind of ties together with the record label also. Back during Obsidian's days, me and my friend and our guitarist from Obsidian, well, I'd say former friend, and also our guitarist, we did something called Unbound Productions, which is like a community of bands promoting each other's shows and going to their shows and passing out flyers for them and helping them sell their merch. And we'd all play shows together. It was a huge scene over here in the Central Valley, and it did really well for a lot of the bands over here. So during Obsidian's breakup, through that little Unbound Productions group, I was able to go into different bands. Like I was in a band called Zombie Destination. I don't like talking about them. That's very bad times with them. But that was the next band I was in with after Obsidian was Zombie Destination. Then I was in another band, Viral Domine, Deathreich, a bunch of bands. And then I helped out bands like Dark Cathedral. I was in another band called Heretic. A lot of bands, but they were all bands that were linked with that community that we were building. So I've been in a lot of bands, and ironically, that community that I mentioned helped build the formula of Metal Incorporated Records, because before it was a record label, It was just a community to promote each other's music of a bunch of bands working together. We can get into that later. Um, and yeah, like I said, after Obsidian broke up, we had all this music just sitting around collecting dust for like 20 years. Because after Obsidian broke up and I went through all these other several different bands, nothing ever felt right. Nothing felt like home, like Obsidian was. Like that was my main band. So after a while, and ultimately after what happened with the band Zombie Death Stench and how they really burned me and spread a lot of lies about me, I was just done with the music industry, the music scene. I was like, this is crap. I don't like this. So I just kind of stepped away from the music scene. And then 20 years later, my keyboardist, Danny, I think he calls me. He talks to me about wanting to get Obsidian back because we need to get this album finished. You know, we need to record it. It's just these kick-ass music. Oh, can I curse? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We had this kick-ass music just sitting around not doing anything with it. And he's like, dude, we need to get this going. And so I was like, I'm in. Let's do it. And then he said, okay, well, I've already talked to our drummer, Alex, and he's in. And then Alex and I think both Alex and Danny talked to Dimitri, our vocalist guitarist, and Nate, our other guitarist. And all of a sudden, later on that day, we're in a group chat on Facebook, just kind of getting to know each other again and then talking about the music again. And we just slowly started working on these songs one piece at a time and getting this album going again. And now 4 years later, it's almost to the finish line. So the album's almost done finally, almost 25 years later after we broke up.
Yeah. So before we go on to getting on to what the band's been up to at the minute, we've got a question from Lisa Boo, my moderator. Okay. She asks, do you have a favorite song you like to play, whether it's your own or by another artist?
Well, I can answer both of those parts. For live, I really love to play our song Forever's End. I don't know, that something about that song, it goes all the way back to our first concert we did, where that song officially got our first mosh pit. The crowd just erupted. And I remember seeing on stage, some dude just got slammed into the wall, like brutally. And I was like, ooh, that looked painful, you know? And so at the end of the show, that same dude comes up to us. He bought our demo and he asked us to sign his shirt. But I'm sitting there like his arm's bleeding and I see like bone, like he broke his bone or his arm. And I'm like, I'm going to sign this dude's shirt, but I'm going to sign go to the hospital. And I sent him on his way. I was like, dude, go to the hospital. You know, you're sitting there bleeding out. So Forever's End will always be one of those songs that just captures the magic of Obsidian and playing live. Now on my own, there's so many bands I love to jam out to. Like I love Pantera. I love Kiss, Motorhead, Tool. Just recently, I started actually. So Suicidal Tendencies has always been one of my favorite bands, especially when I used to skate when I was younger. Just get on my skateboard, put on my headphones, and go. But now, as of last year, I've started learning their music. And I'm sitting here going, man, Robert is a phenomenal bassist. And I can't even touch some of the songs he's written because he's that good. I suck. But, you know, I can usually pick up on tablature and figure out how to play a song. I'm pretty good at it. But when it comes to Suicidal Tendencies, a lot of their stuff, I'm sitting there going, man, I can't play this. Like, he is a badass bass player. So, yeah, there's a lot of bands I like to jam out to. Like Kiss. As a younger kid, I never really realized how good of a bassist Gene Simmons is until a couple of years ago. Because when I got my new bass, you know, it's your brand new toy. You want to play with it. I started learning all the old songs of Kiss. And I was like, man, Gene Simmons is such an underrated bassist. Like, he is really good. So those are some of the bands I like to jam out to on my own.
Cool. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for that. Right. You mentioned that you managed to get the album nearly finished. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's been a process. Unfortunately, our guitarist Nate quit because he couldn't do it because of work and life constraints. Because we all live in different states now, so it's strictly online. We're never gonna play live again. Um, and he just could not do it. It was too much commitment for him. So it's down to just me, Danny, Alex, and Dimitri. Um, we do have my friend Costa from the band Hatriot. He's doing lead guitars on the album. That's all done recorded. So we are done with all the writing. Excuse me. We're just working on the files, getting everything organized and set up, and all the levels tweaked and everything ready with a Dirty Viking Studio. Did I get that right? Dirty Viking Studio, Dirty Viking Audio. I think it's Dirty Viking Studios who we're working with, and we're basically to the point where we're fine tuning everything before we send it off to the final mastering, whoever we decide to go with for mastering. So the music's done, the artwork is done, the track listing is done. We'll slowly start announcing that stuff closer towards the album being released, you know. So it's just been a long journey because some of these songs we couldn't even remember. Like one of our songs, it started off with us trying to remember the riffs, and we couldn't. And so this was I'd say we put it in the back burner, but we're going to remember this song, but let's not focus on it right now, you know? So I'd say over the course of about 3 months, me and Danny and Dimitri were slowly remembering this song. And it got to the point where Danny, he was on his drive home from work, he has a long commute, and he just recorded himself mouthing the song of what he remembered it. He's like, okay, this is how the song goes, dun, 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 you know, how you mouth riffs. He did that, and it was like about a 5 or 6 minute recording, and he sends it to our group chat. And as soon as I heard him mouthing that song, like, I know this song now. It jolted my memory, and then I got on my bass and I started playing him like, yeah, this is how it plays. This is how it goes. And so that's how a lot of this was in our chat group, was just mouthing riffs that we remembered, and then lots of videos sent to each other and lots of sound clips sent to each other. Lots of time, Dimitri would just plug in his guitar and record on his phone live in our chat group, and he'd be going riff by riff by riff for a song so that we all remember it. Then once we did remember the original ways we played these songs, that's when we went back in and said, okay, what riffs still work? What riffs don't? What riffs can we tweak to sound better? How can we make the songs better? Like one of our songs went from just a mid-tempo Ian from Anthrax type metal stomp tempo to now it's like the fastest song on our album. So we completely changed how we played that song, but it's so much better. So a lot of these songs, they did go through a lot of changes and evolved. And you can tell it was way more than the group effort now, because we're sitting there dissecting each thing. Because back in the day, it was just plug in, play, let's go play some shows, rinse, repeat, you know? Like our old demo that you hear on Spotify and everything, that's literally just us plugging in, hitting record, playing, and we had to go to a show right thereafter. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking about playing live, we've got another question from Lisa Boo. She asks, do you have a favorite venue you like to play at?
There's two of them in particular that I liked. One is no longer there because we think the owner burnt it down to collect the fire insurance. But it used to be called the Lone Oak Hall. That was our first show we played. And every time we played there, we always pulled a good crowd. And the venue was just set up perfectly. It was just, I'd say, is one of the coolest places to play a show, because just from the standpoint of a band, everything is at your disposal and all within sight. It's just all right there for you, and it was just a perfect size venue also. So that place, which is unfortunately no longer around, and then this place, I'm pretty sure it's still there. They're called Metal Devastation down in Arizona. We played a show there. Now the other band members have mixed reviews on how they feel about that particular place, but I loved it. It did suck because we were there in the middle of the summer when we played this particular show and the air conditioner was broken. Mind you, you're in Arizona. It's like 120 something degrees in there. We're just pouring sweat. But that crowd to me at that place was special because a lot of the people there didn't speak English. But some of the fans we did make, because we had the lyrics printed out in our demo, they were screaming our lyrics in English to us despite them not speaking English. So we kind of broke that language barrier, and it was a really cool moment. So that venue at Metal Devastation will always be in my memory.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool memory. Thank you, Lisa, for that one. Getting back to the album, you said it was nearly ready. Is there sort of like a release date for it, which is sometime later this year?
Unfortunately, we don't have a release date. We're trying to get it out as fast as we can, and we thank our fans for being so patient because they're probably sick and tired of our posts saying, just hang tight, we're working on it, because there's so many different people's schedules that we got to work on it whenever we possibly can. But now, like I said, we're getting to the finish line with our mixing part because we're getting ready to get all those files to be sent off for mastering. So we're almost at that last stage of sending them off for mastering. So we're almost at the finish line. We don't have a release date, but I can't imagine it's not going to be too much longer.
Yeah, cool. In the meantime, whilst you sort of like getting to the finish line with the finishing up the album, are you sort of like writing new material for the band?
I'm not. Well, I mean, yes and no. I don't know what the future holds for the band because, you know, we all have such busy lives now and busy schedules. Like everyone's married and has. I'm the only single one of the band. You know, everyone else has kids and wives. So I'm not sure. Danny and I, we've spoken about it, but nothing's in concrete yet. Like to keep the band going, but we're not sure. So we'll just see how the future plays out. So that question's kind of in hiatus right now. But the thought is there and the conversation will be had. So we'll let people know once we cross that bridge.
Yeah, cool.
I forgot to mention, I do have collaborations with other bands. Like I did a band with a band on Soda Records, my partner, for the band The Cage in Your Head. And then that song is called, what was it called? It's a long title. I'll have to look it up, but it's an excellent song. A Harrowing Descent into Madness, that's what it's called. A Harrowing Descent into Madness by The Cage in Your Head. And I also collaborated with a band, a death metal band from Mexico called Joel. It's spelled Xoal. And that song is called Never Ending. Another fantastic song. I got to do some flamenco style bass playing on it, which is really cool. So I do collaborations just for fun to help out other bands.
Cool. With this album, are you sort of like planning on putting on a vinyl, or is just like putting it on such as like Apple Music or Google Music?
Well, it will go out to all streaming platforms. We've discussed doing limited CD press runs, like small batches at a time. Do pre-order, then we release them. Pre-order, then release them. So we're not wasting our money. We haven't really talked about vinyl. I mean, I'm sure that conversation will come up in our group chat, but that hasn't come up yet. But we are going to be on all the digital platforms, and we are more than likely going to be doing limited press runs for the CD.
Cool. You mentioned you got a label. You just said it, I can't remember it at the minute.
Idol Incorporated Records.
Yeah, that's the one. And Soda Records as well. You sort of like in partnership with them as well. Could you tell us a little bit about both labels?
Yeah, so going back to what I was saying when Obsidian was active. Oh, and by the way, so the fans are confused as to why we're called the Obsidian Resurrection now. When we decided to reform, we went and looked at if the band name Obsidian was available. There are way too many bands called Obsidian, so we wanted to change our name. So we just called ourselves the Obsidian Resurrection. But anyways, for the record label, so back when Obsidian was playing shows, and I told you about that group community called Unbound Productions. When the band started, I wanted to try and help our music blow up again, in a sense, but I knew that the music landscape was totally different. Like everything's digital nowadays, which honestly to me sucks. I don't like that, but I had to kind of go with the times. So I started looking around at a bunch of bands on Instagram and Facebook, and if I saw a band that I really liked their music, I checked them out on their social pages. And some of these bands, I'm like, how does this band not have a million followers? Like their music kicks ass. Like what's going on here? So I would reach out to these bands and I say, hey, let's promote each other's music. Let's help each other grow. So it started off with like 5 bands, then 10 bands, then 20 bands, then 30, 40. It started blowing up, and we would share each other's music and tag each other in the posts to try to help the other band's fans go to their page, to help their page grow, to help people listen to their music more. It was something along the lines of me in my head thinking that our social media posts are our show flyers, and that's how we're gonna promote our show, is everyone passing out these flyers by tagging everyone in our posts, you know. And it worked. Everyone was showing increasing in their visibility online, and they were getting more streams and more followers. And Sam Oda from the record label Soda, he saw what I was doing, and he just reached out to me and started talking to me, started getting to know me. And over the course of a year, I think that was in about halfway through 2020, going into 2021, he just started talking to me. And then about halfway through 2021, I started showing him some of the bands and the Metal Incorporated, because it was just called Metal Incorporated back then. It wasn't a record label yet. It was just for promoting music. And I started showing him some of the bands and said, hey, you might really like this band for your record label. So I started showing him some of the bands like Aramis, The Cage in Your Head, Gorilla Wizard, Fort Magnitris, Norwald, some of these other bands, you know, that were in the Metal Incorporated community. And he signed to them because he liked what he was hearing. And eventually he had the discussion with me. He's like, hey, you're doing something really big right now with these bands, and you can turn this into a label. So he had that conversation with me, and he helped me turn the community into a record label. And we had basically an open forum to any band that was in the community. They were welcome to submit to the record labels for Sam and I to listen to. And the bands that did, they're signed, you know. So we turned it from community to Metal Incorporated Records. I'm a partner of Soda Records and a subdivision label of Soda Records. And we've just been tag teaming everything from the ground up for the past 2.5 years.
Yeah, cool. Is there sort of like any sort of more plans on signing more bands to the label?
Oh, we get submissions daily. So many bands submit to us. So we're constantly looking at new bands to see what band is a good fit for which label. And now we have a new company, Vector Sound Productions, who's helping us with putting on shows and tours worldwide. So that can open the door to a lot more bands as well. So we're fitting to be a lot more busy. We've already had to add extra days into our release calendar because we're getting much busier. So we're always looking for new bands. You can submit on Soda's website. It's Soda, SODEH.ca. Bands can submit their music there for us to go over. And we have several more in the pipeline for both labels that we're getting ready to announce. So it's all just a waiting game, because there's a lot of intricacies involved with getting the rights to the music, transferring to the label. Spotify is a bitch when it comes to this. I don't like Spotify. They take forever. So it's all a waiting game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It can be a bit of a minefield.
Yeah,
It's
there's a
bit of a
lot of red
minefield.
tape involved in legalities.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, where can people find um, the record labels you band on their social media?
Um, I have tied my Metal Incorporated website to the Soda website, so just go to the Soda, SODEH.ca, and you can find all the Metal Incorporated bands and the Soda bands all on that same page. So you can find all the bands there, and their music links are all there on their press releases and everything. It's all there for people to see.
Cool, cool, cool. I forgot to ask, has Soda Records got a YouTube channel?
They do. We both do.
Yeah.
So, Soda Records has a YouTube channel, and Metal Incorporated Records has a YouTube channel. I kind of gave up on the YouTube channel personally because I could not figure out how to get YouTube going, but it's there. I'm still thinking about bringing it back, but the Soda Records YouTube channel is still active.
Cool, cool. Will there be sort of like when you sort of like announce that a band's going to be releasing an album or a single? Would there be sort of like videos going up on YouTube?
Yeah, so how we do it is we use Vivo, and if the band doesn't make an official video, Vivo will make a generic video for them, and it'll be on our website as well as the YouTube channels.
Cool, cool. So this is probably going to go into sort of like be my last question. So guys, if you want a question to be answered, please put it in the chat there, because we're going to be starting to wrap things up in a few minutes. So my last question is, any advice for people who want to become a musician?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's such a drastic change from the music industry nowadays to what it was back then. It was, in my mind, it feels like it was much more easily accessible back then. But then again, it's easier nowadays because of the whole online streaming. So you kind of have to pick and choose your avenues. Sorry. Do you want to be a strictly online band, or do you want to play shows as well? So now you kind of have to choose where you want to be. Now I say it's easier nowadays because you can't play shows as well as do the streaming thing, but the reason why I say it's harder nowadays is because there are so many bands now compared to back then. It's almost like you really got to hustle to get the word out about your music. Like, for example, one of the newer bands I signed onto Metal Incorporated, it's called Sever the Bond. This is a one-man band. He writes everything. He makes all of his own music videos. He promotes everything. He hustles. He plays live. He goes to these venues and he talks to them and he says, hey, this might sound weird, but I want to open up for such and such. And they say, okay, where's your band? Like, right here, So he has them play his music on the PA, and he literally just sings and plays guitar live by himself to his music that he's already recorded. And this guy hustles. I never would have seen that at all back in the day. But nowadays, bands can do that. It's kind of intimidating for sure, and I guarantee a lot of people are going to think that's weird, but you have to admire the tenacity of this guy. Like, so there are ways you can break through. You just got to work your butt off, even more so back then as it were back then, because now there are so many bands, especially after COVID. It seemed like when COVID hit, more bands just sprang up from the ground because people were sitting at home, they're bored, they're making music. Hey, I'm in a band, And so now there's just so many more bands and independent artists that it's oversaturating music in general. So it's making it difficult for these other bands to stand out. So those bands really need to hustle to get their music out. So that's what I say to people. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just trying to be realistic. You got to work your butt off to get the results that you're looking for. You can't just sit there with your hand out expecting people to put something in it. You got to go out there and grab it. That's what I say to people nowadays.
Cool. Yeah, sound advice. So that'll be so. Go check out Soda Records. Go to check out Obsidian Resurrection. Go check out everything that Josh's been doing. He's been doing some amazing stuff over there. So yeah, and guys, thank you so much for coming in and tuning in. So, like I said, go check out what Josh is doing. The links are in the description there. And Josh, again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So until next time, guys, we'll catch you all later.